Let's start with the basic, because I think that most people would struggle to define what is a microservices architecture. And then if you could at the same time, talk a little bit about what makes it so different from a more monolithic architecture.
Sure. Now, firstly, I'm going to set the scene. Much like if any of you have been around the Agile movement in the last 15 years, there's a lot of hype in this space. So we're going to kind of pull it back to as the kind of the fundamental parts. This isn't about every type of possible permutation of microservices. This is, your fundamentals. So a microservice is an architectural choice in software where instead of having a single large application that we continue to add functionality to, that's what we call the monolith, we decompose or restructure our application style to have separate services, each service having a particular role to play in the system. And at its simplest, you can sometimes hear this described as having the principle of single responsibility. So each of those services has a reason to exist and a single reason to change. Now, on an architectural level, that seems quite sensible because instead of having this giant complex ball of code that you've built over 15 years that you need to figure out how to do your changes to, you can add a new service on the side, and that can be very focused and very targeted, and it can allow you to pull away from the inherited complexity of whatever your legacy looks like. However, there's quite a lot of complexity in and of itself in the choice to deconstruct or decompose. So the fundamental piece to remember is it is just a choice. And also, you don't have to be all of one thing and none of the other. So there are very few organizations out there that are truly only microservices. Your organization, for example, might have a monolith that is keeping the lights on. That's, your core system that everything is hanging off. But your newer code, it's much easier to add as microservices around the edges. So you can end up almost kind of like the sun and the planets, where you have, your little monolith in the middle and increasing numbers of microservices throughout your system as it expands outwards.